Hello, Eric here, and welcome to a computational science video tutorial. This is the third video in a series on plotting simple data in Python and Matlab. In the first video, I showed you how you can create a simple data file using C++. This is part of a course I'm teaching. If you're not part of my course, don't worry. I hope this video will still be useful to anyone. But for my course, my students will need to generate data and plot it. And if you're watching this video, you might be in a similar situation. The way I'm generating my data is as a column vector, so one piece of data per line. Now, with this data, we want to be able to plot it. So in my second video, I showed you how we can do this with Python. We used a library called Matplotlib. And Matplotlib is a great tool. And the purpose of Matplotlib is to really emulate some features from Matlab. And what I want to do is now we're going to look at Matlab and how we can plot in Matlab. That's what Matplotlib is sort of trying to emulate. Usually when I do graphs and plots, I do use Python. It's usually just a little bit more convenient for me. Matlab is really nice, so I jump in from time to time with complex data. All right, so let's jump over to Matlab and see how that works. Here we are in Matlab. We're running our program. The first thing we need to do in Matlab is we need to navigate to the directory where we have our data. And you can see I've already done that. When you open Matlab, I also want to point out I am using the most recent version of Matlab. It is the 2016B release. So this was released in the second half of 2016. With older versions of Matlab, some of these commands might be a little bit different. They should be similar. And I'll mention where I think there might be a small change. I haven't used Matlab much in the last year, so I can't quite remember these small little changes in function names. All right, so yeah, first thing we need to do is we want to read the contents from our files X and Y into an array of data. The nice thing about Matlab is when it reads in the file, it automatically tries to find numeric data. That's what people use Matlab for. They use it for doing math. It's a matrix laboratory. It expects numbers. And what it's going to do when it reads in our file, it's going to look at the file X, and it's going to look at this as being a column vector with one column, and here we have 21 rows. If we have spaces between our data, it's going to look at it as having two columns and however many rows. So we want it to be a single column, which is why I created two files. So I'm going to create a variable X, and this is going to hold the data. Now the command to open and read and do all of that is just DLM read. Now DLM stands for delimited read. And Matlab is kind of nice. If you start typing and hit tab, it's going to give you a list of functions. You can do DLM read and DLM write. Okay, we want to do read here because we're reading our data. And then we just have to give it the file name. Because we're in the same directory as our data, we can just hit DLM read.enter. And here you can see we displayed our vector when we read it in. We don't need to display that information. I can write y equals DLM read y.txt. And if we end our line with a semicolon, it's not going to print to the screen. We just have y. And we know we created the variable because when we look on the lower left-hand corner, we can see we have this variable y, which is 21 by 1, and it's doubles. When we come back here and we look at our main function, we can see, oh, look at this. X and y have 21 elements in it. Our data is the correct size, so things are looking good. To plot, we just need to come back to our command window, type plot x comma y, and when we hit enter, we're going to get a plot of our data. So this is nice, but I want an easy way where I can plot this data just really quickly every time I open Matlab. To do that, I'm going to write a script. So I'm going to right click here, go to new file, script, and I'm going to call this plot my data. Now if you had a Python file here, you would notice I gave it the same file name, but because of the extension of .m, plotmydata.m will be different from the Python file. My Python file is in a different directory, so it'll work. All right, so let's write this Matlab script. I'm going to just say x equals DLM read x.txt. I'm going to put the semicolon, or it will print everything to the screen, even though it's in a script. Y equals DLM read y.txt, semicolon again, plot xy. Now with this, I can come over to my command window and I can just type plot my data. Oops, if I just type plot, it gives me all my options. When I hit tab, I'll go choose plot my data, and then I hit enter, and you can see my data is plotted. And this is what we had before, so we're pretty happy. There is one more thing I want to do. I want to add this directory path here. Well, an easy way to do that is I can come to my C++ code, and I can just sort of copy my C++ code and paste it here. If I do that, well, I have a few spaces at the beginning to get rid of. I got to fix up my data a little bit. Oops, don't want to do that. There we go. Also in Matlab, we don't really need to worry about variable types. It'll try to figure it out, and it will assume your variables are numbers. Well, unless you tell it, hey, number, you should be a string. All right, the other thing is Matlab does not like the double quotes. It likes single quotes. So I'm going to put single quotes here. Single quote, and we'll come to the end and put a single quote. So at this point, everything's looking pretty much the same. I do need to give you a warning. We can't do string concatenation with the plus sign. We're going to have to do something different here. One way to do it is you can use strcat for your string concatenation, and it's a function that will take multiple inputs, right? So we can do string concatenation, or we can create an array just sort of this way. We can just say path, space, and then the other. And both of these will work. And they should both work for string concatenation. If I remove, basically if I remove the semicolon when I run this, we'll see that this is being the right data. So let's run this. Oops, and we'll look in here and we'll see we have x file is equal to this string here. And when we come to the very end, you'll see we have the correct extension. So there are two different ways we can join two strings together. I'll put the semicolons back here just to let us know, hey, we're not going to output that every time we run this. We just looked at it the one time. All right, so the DLM read, I can just say x file. And here I can put in y file. All right, so here we now are able to sort of hard code our paths. You can use the string joining that you prefer. And yeah, we can basically plot our data and look at it. Now we might be looking at our data and happy with it, in which case we're done. I think that plotting in Matlab is incredibly easy. You will notice that this script in Matlab is only about 8 lines. In Python, it was about 20. But let's make some changes and see what happens. So let's come in here. Let's make our data more smooth. Maybe we'll give it 200 lines. And let's change our sign function. Let's do xi times xi. We'll make the sign function just a little bit more crazy. We'll output this to the files, and we'll see how this looks. You know, we have more data. It's going to go crazy. My computer's a little bogged down because we have a few things going on. But once it's done building, we just plot our data. And here we can see the data looks pretty good, although it's not quite as smooth as I would like. You know, some of these aren't really going all the way to the top. I know it should. That's fine. We can go back and we can give ourselves more linearly spaced data points. You know, I can do 2,000. I could do 20,000. C++ is a fast language. It's going to go quickly. And when we come here with our more data points, you can now see, oh, look at this. It is beautiful data. So by having this sort of general code for how it's generated in C++, we're able to change our output. And then by having our scripts in Python or Matlab, we're able to very, very, very easily visualize it. I do think that Matlab gives you some more features in your plots easier. So if you're not used to programming, I would recommend Matlab for your graphics. If you're a bit more familiar with programming, Python's going to give you more options for scripting. I've worked with programs in the past where I have to create hundreds of files, and Python's just much more convenient for going through those. That being said, you can do a lot of that stuff in Matlab. Matlab is much better for dealing with matrices, but you can see here when we're trying to join two strings, Matlab is really not that good at string joining. Python is beautiful for working with strings. So there are a few differences between Matlab and Python. Use the language that works best for you. So that is going to conclude this tutorial. If you liked this or found it interesting, please hit that like button. It'll let me know that you found this video useful so I can it'll motivate me to make more. If you have any questions or comments or ideas for what you would like me to do in future videos, please let me know in the comment section below. Other than that, thank you for watching my video and keep on coding.